Hey guys, Jason from Strictly Broken here, back in with another deck profile. This week we're going to be going over 8 Pants Ayakashi to complement the 8 standby deck profile I just posted last week. Took this one to locals. I wanted to try a slightly more unconventional version of the build because I think the Japanese one is pretty cookie cutter. I will leave a link to both in the description, but I want to focus mostly on this one because I thought this one was a lot cooler. So we're same two combos. It's the level 1 Suzu Pants with the level 3 Suzu Pants. And we're going to go into this. This deck is pretty neat. It's kind of like a Kanata flavor of deck. Slams out its early play after getting through its advantage combo at level 1. And it kind of tries to sit on this like hex-proof 11k level 0 early play. I don't think this deck is going to be very good in the current English format though, because of things like 7 Deadly Sins running around. But I do still think it's really fun, and it's a pretty good locals deck. You could probably bring this to events. God, maybe if we're lucky, 7 Deadly Sins gets hit somewhere during the season, and then I think this deck shoots up a lot more. I think the competitive build of this set right now would be 8 standby. But nonetheless, I had a lot of fun playing it today, so I want to talk about it. So our first card is going to be Feminine Side Matsuri. Feminine Side Matsuri is a on-play Ditch CX salvage, and she has the effect pay 1, put a top card of your deck in the clock, bounces to your hand, choose one of your other characters on the field, put it to your hand. So it's commonly referred to as like the Bell effect or like the Ainz effect. Very strong effect. It's usually a lot more noticeable when your zero game kind of sucks. In this situation, we're playing it more to be yellow, and because it's the Did CX salad that is also a plus. Our level 0 is actually like pretty okay. Nothing too stellar, but it gets us where we're trying to go. So, again, this is mostly for yellow. Our next card is More Than Friends, Matsuri, and Suzu. This card is pretty insane. It is if your opponent has pay 2 Encore, which is like irrelevant, and it is a chaser, so it is when beginning your opponent's attack phase, you can run this in front of a lane that has a character in front of it, as long as it's open. 3,500 power, so it's kind of like the mill. It's basically just the Milim from Slime. Fantastic card. Pay 2 Encore never comes up. It just gets to run in front of things and be a big body. It's also red fix, which for this deck will also be pretty important. Next, we have our probably the most insane card in this deck, if I'm being honest. Our Brainstorm Special Relationship Suzu. This card has, on play, choose any card from your clock, add it to your hand, and then put a card from your hand into your clock. And it is a tap self salvage Brainstorm. It is not an understatement to say that this card, the deck kind of revolves around this card in a lot of ways, where this card is the center point of a lot of the really cool lines you can take, to where we're actually playing a different back row than I would normally be playing, because I actually want to keep this card in my hand a lot of times. So cards like the Bell Matsuri can really complement this card, because you can use this as like a plus Brainstorm and then pick this card up, not to plus with it, but to reuse its effect, because we don't actually want to open lanes, so we can kind of I'll just like single lane Matsuri and then bounce this card from my back row just to be able to use this on play effect again, so I don't have to keep digging for extra copies of this card. This card is insane. I'll talk about this more. I'm going to leave this card off to the side because I think this card comes up a lot more when we get to our level 2 game, so I want to be able to talk about it. Next, we have a quick one of Battle Stance Koga. He is just the effect of discard one from your hand, put him to the bottom of your deck, and then search your deck for any Omiko City character. Fine card. Again, it's extra selective search. I like this card in like Oshinoko and like a lot of the other decks that get it, like Bochi. Big fan here. A little bit of extra yellow splash as well. Next, we have what's coming up is our next package that I like a lot, actually. We have Interest in Ninja's Lucy. She is, if you have another of the Sensitive Heart Yayoi, which is a card we'll talk about next, in your back row, she gets 2k power. She's a 4k. And she has on play, you can discard one card from your hand. If you do, search your deck, if you do, search your deck for the Sensitive Yayoi and put it in your hand. So, or put it in your stage, sorry, not your hand. So this card is a 4k by itself. The Yayoi is a global 5, so it's actually a 45. So it's a really nice like turn 1, extra turn 1 play. You play it, search the Yayoi. Yayoi is actually a pretty good back row for this deck too. And then you get a nice 45 beater. Hard to get over. And our Yayoi is this one. So Sensitive Heart Yayoi. She's a global 5. And she has Act, pay 1, rest 2 of your characters. To look at top 4, add a level 1 or higher card. So we do play 5 events in this deck, so being able to grab 1 or higher card is really good. And also we are an early play deck, so we have a 2-1 and a 3-2 similar to Kanata, so being able to actually grab those pieces off of this is really great. We tend to play most of the game in our first deck until we get to our combo, so this basically just replaces wanting to brainstorm. That's why we can afford to just kind of play brainstorm down for its on-play effect and bounce it. We don't really need to keep the card on the board. And then we can stick our brainstorm on the board when we're ready. This card also just being a global 5 for our board-based strategies is really nice. Next we have a 1 of King of Ayakashi Shirogane. This card is a bonder to our 2-0 red event that we do play. And it has pay 1, send this card to memory, and choose the 2-0 event, put it to memory, change this into the 2-1 Shirogane that we do play from our waiting room. I am actually very heavily debating cutting this and the Shirogane, or at least just the 2-1 Shirogane, and just making this just a vanilla bonder. In testing, it came up basically never where I wanted to use it, or I was just not focused on doing this. So I think this could very easily just bump up the ratio of one of our events, or another 0 or something. I play another flex 0 in the slot. It's fine though. It was not intrusive. I didn't feel like it was detrimenting me in any way. Next card we have Moments of Everlasting Summer Suzu. This card is if all of your characters are Omiko City, this gets -1 level and 1500 power. So it is a level 0, 5500 power. With Climax combo, when you play her corresponding pants, you get to search your deck for any Omiko City character added to your hand. So it's our level 1 combo of choice. It's super selective, which is very core to our 2-1 strategy, our 2-1-3-2 strategy. We just need to be able to search the right cards at the right time and make sure we're prepped. The only problem I have currently is that without playing Ricky, you have no real good on-demand way to clock yourself. But fortunately, I think this deck is pretty good at playing through those turns anyway. And with things like the Matsuri Bouncer, you can pretty easily force yourself to 2, kind of similar to what Ainz does. There's definitely a merit to still looking to play the Ricky, the pay 1 clock 1 search level 1 or lower. Suzu, but it's hard with the space, so I'm opting to play a better game and try to be able to be allowed to extend out my level 1 game if I need to, and maybe not triple early play, but maybe go for double and just play a more conservative game. I think it actually works out pretty well, especially with the way this deck is played, where I think if you play the more blue-yellow focus deck, you kind of just want to try to slam triple early play and go. Which I think I've noticed that this deck actually fixed a lot of problems I had playing the vanilla version, thanks to the Yayoi package, being able to sustain my hand more, and it gave me extra hand when I had extra stock from staying at 0-1 for a bit too long. It let me convert extra hand, which is really nice. So next we have our working behind the scenes Rio. This card is just an on play, discard your climax, sack another character, CX swap from waiting room. It's just a way to not spend our stock to climax swap, because we want to be spending our stock to use our Yayoi checks and to play our 2-1 out, so we don't really want to spend stock there, but we can sack cards. We can use our Yayoi. We can sack the Yayoi off when we're done with it, because we can then play the Brainstorm down or go for the Shirogane or whatever we want to do with that extra slot. Or if we need to play a utility card or something to sack, we can do those before we do our changes to make sure we have the climax. This is a very nice card to have. It's yellow as well for our next card, then in yellow as well. This is partly what we're playing yellow for. You could just play the Suzu, but again, I think this is trying to not spend stock wherever we can to be allowed to do other things. Because I think a big problem with the 8 Pants Ayakashi Triangle, when you don't play this Yayoi, this small Yayoi engine with the back row, is your hand gets very, very low very fast. Because when we talk about the early play, you'll see why. Our next card is the memory shared between the two. This is just a 1-0. If you have an Omiko City character, you can play this. Check for add a level 1 or add a card, a character, Omiko City character, or you can bounce a cost 0. The bounce cost 0 never comes up unless you're playing against Luna. Then you could just bounce her, which is pretty nice, I'll admit. But we're only playing 2 right now. This is a card I would look to cut the 2-1 Shirogane to play a third of this card. I think this card comes up a lot. Big problem with 8 Pants Ayakashi Triangle is the deck speed. All your deck speed is basically costed, and you have to zoom. So Yayoi, with this card being allowed to be grabbable off Yayoi, means you can run through your deck a lot more often and actually get into your Suzu combo at 2 in second deck, which is what we ideally want to be doing. There's no benefit to playing Suzu down at level at like first deck, like maybe like Overlord or Kanata has. So ideally we want to actually refresh before we get to Suzu, so we also get to heal off the refresh point with her. Yeah, this card helps a lot. I would actually very much look to play 3. I really did like that card. It came up a ton. So next, we're actually just going to talk about the event. We're going to hold off on the combo until it's all together. This is Secret Art Gender Swap Awakened. It has 2 effects on it technically. We only care about the second effect. Technically, it can free play the 3/2 Matsuri double R that we do not play in red. But what we care more about is that it says if you have an Omiko City character, choose a level 2 or higher character, and you add it to your hand. Because we are 2/1 and 3/2. We need to pick up the pieces. This helps us pick up the pieces. So it's good we play the Bonder for it. It's red, and our Brainstorm can get this out of our clock, which I think is like pretty huge. It's also really hard in this deck to not have color. I think that's like a huge thing because of the way the 2/1 works, and we'll get to it. Not having color for this card is like almost impossible. So as long as you have a single 2/1 in your hand, you can always play this card, I would say. Or like 90% of the time you can play this card if you have a waiting room, or if you have any red in your waiting room. Next we have our, not that card. We have our Grammy Hunter Lucy. Same card we talked about in the 8 standby deck. It's just an anti-change counter. It has the Amelia anti-change cost, so it's pay 1, discard 1, sack 1 on top of the actual 1 cost counter. For a 25 counter, anti-change to stock. Great card, big fan. My favorite anti-change counter in the game, cost-wise. So always glad to have it. It comes up a lot. You defend Suzus. And then we have 2/1 full-fledged power Shirogane. This is the card we're talking about cutting. It is an assist 5. And it is memory if you have the 2/0 event in your memory. It is a global 15 to your characters. I genuinely thought this card would be a lot better than it was. Shirogane is just very hard to resolve because if the game goes a little too fast, you don't get there. But maybe there's games I maybe just didn't play against them where I want to prioritize this card, because being able to turn your Suzus into 12-5 walls and 2 13k walls if you can triple is actually very strong and can be very hard to get over, and kind of incentivizes them to side the Suzu, which is fine. So maybe that's the thing to look at. I need to play with this a bit more before I decide to really cut it or not. But it is the card I am most looking to cut before I cut the Bonder necessarily, because I think the Bonder does not need to have this card to be relevant as a card. Next, we have the first part of our combo for our level 3. Huge Sweet Tooth Suzu. This card is quite insane, I would say. The way the deck actually plays and how it synergizes with the Brainstorm. So it is on play. You can choose any Omiko City character in your waiting room, put it to the bottom of your clock, and when this played on stage from your hand, when you play on play stage from hand, to draw 1. So similar to how Kanata works, this is the way you refill your hand, and you keep your hand gassed up to like, because our climax combo is when you play the pants, you sacrifice this card, choose one of the level 3 Suzu in your hand, put it on stage in the card the slot was in. So just like Kanata, changes from hand. So you get your 1 hand back from the draw from this. What's really cool though is that this card, because it sets your clock, it allows us to actually put targets we want to add to our hand with our Brainstorm into our clock, which is like a huge thing you do all the time with this deck. It'll be like, play this, clock another copy of itself if you need that, or clock a level 3 combo if you need that. Play down your Brainstorm, swap it with a random card you drew off this, and then you just get that to your hand. If you ever refresh the climax, it's there from this to grab. The combo just so well together, and it really enables this whole package. It can set red for you, like I mentioned. You can set your Matsuri Chaser into your clock, and you just go. It's quite awesome, I think, how the stuff synergizes. It's really fun to play with too, especially when you get into the flow. You're like, oh, I got no back row, but I got 2 Brainstorms in my hand. I can just go like clock fix my hand into double or triple combo out of like nowhere. It makes it feel really good too when like you're like, oh no, I lost all my combos to my grave and now I can't get them. But then it's like, oh, it's okay, I have Brainstorms and I have the 2/1s in my hand. That's all I actually need to combo. Next, we have our level 3 combo. This is what comes off of the 2/1 Suzu when you choose to early play it. This is Rampant Desire Suzu. This card gets -3 levels while on the stage, and this card gains hexproof, so it cannot be targeted by your opponent's effects. So it can't be anti-changed, can't be bounced. None of that Luna hate works on this card except for bombs. Bombs do work on this card, unfortunately. I wish they didn't. This card then also says, when this is placed on stage from your hand, you may choose a character in your clock, put it to your memory. So memory healer, also extremely strong. Very, very cool. It makes it less punishing if you do play this down in like your first deck, or like close to refresh, because the decompression is like notably less since you don't heal everything off to to clock. So you're just decompressing less overall through your healing, because this will heal a lot between clocking yourself and the combo. So you're going to clock yourself out, you're going to play this card down, heal to memory, and the climax combo for this card is on attack. If the climax is in your climax area and you have another Omiko City character, choose one of the following 2 effects and perform it. Either burn 1 or heal 1. So, very awesome card. It's kind of like Ainz. It's a worse version of Ainz, but you don't have all the extra like things around it that you need to play to get there. It's either burn 1 or heal 1, and then on play heal, because they realize that Ainz is kind of broken. Go figure. But yeah, your normal turn loop with this deck is you're gonna go. Ideally, you're at 2-0. You play down 3 of this card, clock yourself 3 times. And then you can go, like, play these. Or ideally, you're at, like, 2-3, I guess, is technically the magic. Or 2-2 is the magic number. You go 2-2, clock for turn, play down 3 Suzu, draw 3 cards, play down 3 of this, heal 3 of them to memory, attack 3 times, heal 3 of them to waiting room. Obviously, anything you don't need to heal is just free burns on that turn. And this card is very sticky, being 11k. 11-5 with the Yayoi back row, since we probably will still have that on the board. And what's really cool with the Yayoi, because we have this 2-1, we can actually, because Yayoi says rest 2 characters, you can play these down and then rest them, and then pay 1, check 4. So it lets you get more hand for this, and like also dig for these cards while you're going through your turn. Very, very nice. I really like this combo. I really do wish 7 Deadly Sins had gotten restricted in this form in English, so we could play with this card more. I think this card is really fun to play with, and it feels really strong to stick on the board. The problem is when, one of the best decks in the game is running a bomb, it makes this card really easy to answer. Especially when that deck has like such good selection for its zeros, it literally just has to hold bombs, and then your whole game plan just falls apart. But besides that, versus most other decks, I think this card is extremely strong. Being hexproof is extremely nice. A lot of decks are trying to play bouncers and stuff, and you just say no. So next we have our fellow girls, Suzu. This is our auxiliary finisher, because burn 1s are not good enough all the time. She is on play. You can choose one of your Omiko City characters and put it to your stock. And then she is on attack. Pay 2, drop 1, burn 4 on the turn this was played. So basically a pay 1, drop 1, burn 1, or pay 1, ditch 2, burn 1. If you need to. Could you just sack one of your characters? So you can like sack your brainstorm off the board that's been sitting there, the Yayoi, whatever. Very, very nice card. It just kind of does the job you need it to. It closes out the game. I played this deck for a pretty long time without this card because I didn't know this existed. And then when I started putting this in, I immediately noticed the return for putting it in. We'll never cut this card. I actually was playing 2 in the more blue focus version. 1 is fine. I did notice I was getting to play it less, so this could also be a card I bump the Shirogane to one of these if I feel like I don't really need the 0s and 1s. But we'll see. Thought for another time. Next we have Suited Up Suzu. This card is actually an early play if the Suzu Brainstorm, the special relationship Suzu, is in your clock. And it is a rest 1 of your characters. When this is put on stage from your hand, you pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses 1 climax in the waiting room, returns all other cards in the waiting room except for that climax to their deck, and then shuffles. So otherwise it's called a Fumio. Great card. Extra decompression, since we're basically a vanilla swing deck, kind of helps our 4 stick and helps our like just vanilla swing stick. Especially when we're already winning board and we're opening lanes, we can just kind of like, oh, okay, slam, shuffle, and then go. I mean, you see this card all the time in decks. It's just one of those like, it's one of those decompression tools you just expect to have in a good deck. And finally, we have one bewildered at his childhood friend Matsuri. This card early plays as well if the Suzu Brainstorm is in our clock, which once again, super easy to do because of our 2-1 being able to set that card into our clock for us. It means that the early play condition is basically irrelevant because as long as it's in our waiting room, clock a copy. Now this is online. Great, fantastic. When this put on stage from him, it gets 400 power, and neither player can use backups until the end of your opponent's turn. And on a your opponent's level 2 or higher battle opponent, you can salvage an Omiko City character. Card is also fantastic, helps us break the boards where we need to break them before we can like stick our Suzus, or if there's something really annoying like a standby deck and we need to get rid of like a global 1500 power, this card gets us there. So it just runs over something, gets us an extra bit of hand, kind of helps to stave off how expensive our Suzus were to play as well. Really, really good card. Also, one of the reasons I wanted to play yellow was to be able to play this card. So I think this plus the little yellow package was a pretty nice incentive to play this. But yeah, overall, that is Ayakashi Triangle. I'm a very big fan of this set as a whole, I think. There's 2 really fun decks. I think there's a couple other really cool ones you can play that I probably won't explore myself, like 8 Wind. But these are the 2 decks I really like playing with, is 8 Standby and 8 Pants. I feel like 8 Pants is the better deck to just kind of bring to locals and have more fun with, at least for right now. I think there could be a big change if something gets banned. I don't think they're going to be like the tier 1 meta threat decks, but I think they're a good, like, solid mid-tier 2 deck you can play. I think in trios especially, these are really fun to play because these can be like a good 3rd deck. They're not bad by any means. But yeah, I think that's really everything. Thanks again for watching, guys. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. It helps a lot. And follow me on Twitter, or if you need to talk to my Discord, my user is Prinz, PRINZ_WS on both Twitter and Discord. Feel free to DM me there if you have any questions, or you can shoot me a message on Twitter, whatever you want to do, or X, what do you want to call it. That'll be all for today, guys. Next week, I think we might look at Nino, but we will kind of see. Everybody have a good day.